Hello, travelers! I'd like to welcome you back to the Hungry Shark Tavern, and today we are going to have a very special video in honor of today's holiday, Valentine's Day. Now, there's probably no greater symbol of the day of love than the rose. The illustrious, delicate crimson petals have long been a symbol of passion, beauty, love, and sorrow. The Society of American Florists documents that, as of 2018, over 250 million roses are produced just for Valentine's Day. But to further understand why the rose became an iconic symbol of the holiday, we need to dig a little bit into history. In Victorian England, women's roles in society were very limited by customs and norms. Within the strict confines of feminine expectations, the tending of gardens and flowers were among those norms expected. Many women latched onto using flowers as a means to convey coded messages between one another in a practice that was called floriography. The expansion of floriography is often attributed to Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, who was the wife of a British ambassador to Turkey in the 18th century. During this time, she became enthralled with a Turkish version of flower language, and wrote a series of letters back home to England in 1716. In them, she described Turkey's tradition as a way of assigning meaning to objects in order to send secret love messages. In these letters, she wrote, "There is no color, no flower, no weed, no fruit, herb, pebble, or feather that is not a verse belonging to it. And you may quarrel, reproach, or send letters of passion, friendship, civility, or even news, without ever inking your fingers." Despite her interest in the Turkish flower language of salam, she fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the language and symbology. In salam, it is the association between the object and words that rhyme with it that gives it its symbolic meaning, not the significance of the object itself. It's a bit of a tricky, more nuanced understanding. Nonetheless, the concept spread throughout England and Western Europe. In 1819, Charlotte de la Tour published a dictionary for the language of flowers that helped formalize the practice. Each flower was given a detailed description of its characteristics and the symbolic meanings behind them. Such flowers included lilacs and Christmas-time staples such as holly and mistletoe, and of course, the rose. When discussing the rose, de la Tour wrote, "Who that ever could sing has not sung the rose? The poets have not exaggerated its beauty, or completed its panegyric. Nature seems to have exhausted all her skill in the freshness, the beauty of form, the fragrance, the delicate color, and the gracefulness with which she has bestowed upon the rose." The rose was not portrayed as a symbol of love and romance, but the very embodiment of these things. As such, the rose became cemented as the choice flower to send a message of romance to a love interest. While this is all well and good, I'm sure some people may be thinking why I'm droning on about this on a cooking channel. Well, the popularity of floriography trickled into the Victorian kitchen as well, built upon the established practices of incorporating edible flowers in Elizabethan cooking the century prior. Large estates of the time had opulent flower beds and rose gardens tended to by servants. Such flowers were cultivated not just for their aesthetics, but for practical purposes as well. A very good window into this time, which I happen to have a copy of, is Eleanor Fettiplace's recipe book. In this book, Eleanor details various uses for roses, where she would collect them in order to make syrups, to make cough drops, to make ointments, or even distill them into spirits. One use that caught my eye, though, is the collecting of rose petals and using them to create preserves, to create jam. Eleanor, though, it seems, had access to roses in quantities that could contemporarily be described as commercial. Her recipe calls for a pound of fresh rose petals, and that's a fairly substantial amount, to be mixed with 3 pounds of sugar. Most of us do not have access to such a quantity, especially not to fresh rose petals, and especially ones that are suitable for cooking with. However, one may find dried rose petals sold in tea sections of Asian and Middle Eastern markets, or online. These may sometimes be labeled as damask roses, and with some conversion we can make a rose petal jam that is bound to leave a romantic impression with any Valentine's Day breakfast. To start, we are going to need to get our supplies together. We will need about 1 cup of dried rose petals, Dried roses are often sold whole as a bud, so what we want to do is we want to carefully remove that base so that we're only left with the petals. With that, we're also going to need 4 cups of sugar, 4 tablespoons of pectin, 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and 1/2 teaspoon of rose water. To start, we are going to bloom the dried rose petals. We are going to place them in a pot, and we're going to cover them with 3 cups of water. We're going to bring this mixture to a boil, and then we're going to let the petals simmer in this for about 5 minutes uncovered. Once that time has passed, we're going to remove the pot from heat and cover it and leave it aside for another 10 minutes. This is going to steep the petals, get all of that goodness and floral flavor into the water itself, and this is also the same way in which tea is made from them. Once the petals have steeped, we're going to return the pot to medium heat and we're going to add the pectin. Now, very importantly, we need to stir this constantly as it heats. We're going to bring this up to a boil and we're going to let it boil for about 1 minute. Next, we're going to add the sugar, still stirring constantly, and continue heating this mix until it boils. We're going to let it boil for about another minute. To achieve a proper gel point, the sugar has to reach roughly 220 degrees Fahrenheit, which is going to look like a gentle foaming as it stays around this temperature. Once that's boiled, we're going to remove the pot from heat and we're going to stir in our lemon juice and rose water. Now, before we put this away into containers, we're going to do a test to make sure that the jam has set properly, that has achieved gel point. There are a few ways to do this, but my preferred method is to do the spoon test. What you're going to do is you're going to take a spoon, you're going to dip it into the jam, and bring it back up. And you're going to watch how it pours either from the side of the spoon or from the back of the spoon. If it pours from the spoon in intermittent drips and it's very runny, then it hasn't achieved a proper gel point, and we're going to need to boil it for at least another 30 seconds. However, if it slides smoothly and comes down almost like a sheet off the back of the spoon, then it is ready. We're going to pour our jam into a bunch of sterile glass containers, and we're going to leave that to cool and set for at least a few hours. Patience is sometimes key when it comes to jams, and in some cases it can take even 24 hours for a jam to properly set. Once it is set, you can set it aside in the fridge for a few weeks, or what I personally recommend is if you have a water bath canner, you can process the jars in there, and you got rose jam for a few months. Once done, this makes a perfect floral topping for pancakes or French toast. If you want, you can take the added step of straining the petals out after cooking in order to turn it into a jelly. And this is perfect for something like thumbprint cookies, or to spoon in as part of a very sweet component to a marinade. The choices are yours on how to add some special flair for your special someone. Now, I do have a number of other videos themed around Valentine's Day that I'm going to be putting out over the next couple of weeks. There has been some unfortunate delays on my end. I am currently recording this in very severe back pain due to an injury, and there is work that's going on at my place, construction work, which very much limits the time in which I can record things, but I'm working on things. I've got several things filmed, and I'm hoping to get them out within the next couple of weeks. Until then, I want to wish you all a happy Valentine's Day, and I hope to see you here again at the Hungry Shark Tavern.